right? So again, Mr. Raghav Podar needs no introduction, but I will, for the benefit of all who are joining us for the first time. Mr. Raghav Podar is the chairman of the Podar Education Group. He is actually shouldering a very, very distinguished and a pedigree-led institution or a group which is 95-year-old legacy, having a 95-year-old legacy. While Raghav is a University of Texas graduate, or he educated himself from there. He has been working on multiple aspects of education, but I think there are a few very strong distinction between institutions which are educationist-led and I would say businessman-led schools. So there is a very strong distinction which we can see in the way his institutions are led, which is the Podar group of institutions. Of course, he believes in the changing times, where he strongly believes that the latest technology, from cyber science to 3D modeling and tablet controlled classrooms, but what we have kept alive from their 95 years legacy is the beauty of stress-free learning. They are the pioneers in what they call the happy time at school. This makes an impact, especially in the early years, where the child learns to look forward to his time in the school. As I said, this is the most appropriate introduction I felt for Mr. Raghav. And now we will dive into the format of this discussion, which will be that we will have certain question with Mr. Raghav, and then we will open up house for Q&A, which is your questions, and Mr. Raghav will like to obviously make an attempt to answer them for you in the best of his capacity. That is the way we will move this. I will just quickly put a few things in place, and then we are good to go. As a format, as I mentioned, we will first have few questions with Mr. Raghav, and then we can have your questions coming in on the topic of transformational leadership specifically. Okay, so Raghav, my opening question, which is very fundamental to this conversation, what to you in general leadership or even transformational leadership looks like in the current present times?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Gaurava, and a pleasure to be back at the IPN. It's been a while, as you rightly said, but so happy to see on a Wednesday evening at 5:30 a lot of principals, whether they are in their houses or some of them in the cars, with big smiling faces. Always love to see that, because education is something that needs to be passionate and needs to be something from the heart. Also, I would like to point out to you, Gaurava, it's not 95 years, it's actually 96 years today. So if we had the session yesterday, it would have been 95 years. Today is the Founders Day and it's 96 years. So
Wow, lovely. In fact, congratulations on that bit. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And 4 more years to a century. And since you're talking about cricket and giving the cricketing analogy, I must say that since you have decided that I am going to be the opener in this match, I hope that you, as the opening bowler, are going to be a little kind and not bowl bouncers at me. No, but I'll enjoy the session, as I always have at the IPN with Gaurav Yadav. Coming to your question on transformational leadership, great topic. But before I share my views on transformational leadership as a leadership style, I think it's important to set the context on what transformational leadership really is. I'm not going to give you too much jargon or high-flying dialogues on transformational leadership, as that you can easily get on Google and YouTube. I want to address transformational leadership and leadership as a whole, actually, through the prism of education and education leaders, because today all of the 100 plus viewers who are here are educationists in some form or the other, and most of them are principals, I would imagine. So to put it succinctly, transformational leadership is formally defined as a style that emphasizes and builds on the employee's strengths, ensuring the team's development. As per the definition, transformational leaders are focused on inspiring their followers to create change, innovate, and shape the organization's future. It's about the followers, it's about the team. They believe that the key to succeeding as a leader is to connect with the employees and help them feel motivated to drive success. So, what are the personality traits of transformational leaders, generally speaking. They say that they are generally extroverted, very extroverted people. They are open to different results. They have an openness to different results. And there is no micromanaging. So great. If you think, I mean, what do you feel? Do you feel that one should become a transformational leader? Well, maybe or maybe not. I don't think it can be as black and white as just having certain personality traits and then saying, I want to be a transformational leader. Let's say, Gaurava, if you are not doing, say, quizzing, or you were not doing getting educationists on one platform, or if you were not into cricket, let's say, Gaurava, you are a surgeon, a cricket, maybe a heart surgeon or kidney surgeon, any surgeon. Do you think transformational leadership is the style suitable for a surgeon? Can a surgeon be open-minded to different results? Should a surgeon not micromanage? So personally, I'm not a big fan of pigeonholing different leadership styles with these fancy labels. What are these fancy labels? What are the different leadership styles? Authoritarian leadership, or democratic leadership, or coaching style leadership, or laissez-faire, or transactional, or transformational leadership style. And there are many more. These are just 5 or 6 that I've mentioned. Each leadership style is situation dependent, and no leader needs to have only one leadership label on their forehead. The leadership style that a leader needs to have is the ability to adapt and be flexible among the different leadership styles, depending on the person and the situation that they are confronted with. That's all what leadership style actually is. For example, now I'm addressing a group of top principals across India and maybe across the world. Each of you are dealing with tens or hundreds of teachers every single day. What leadership style do you think you need to have to get the best out of each teacher? Authoritarian, democratic, transformational, transactional, coaching, laissez-faire, or something else? Well, to get the best out of teacher A, you may need to have a highly authoritarian style. One who's ruling with an iron fist. For another, it may be far more democratic, that you go up to the teacher and you say, okay, dear, what do you think of this? Take her opinion. How should we go about achieving this? This is the problem in front of us. What should we do? What is your suggestion for it? For another teacher, you need to coach, mentor, handhold them. For another, it can be purely laissez-faire. What is laissez-faire? It is no control, no supervision, no guidance. Just leave it totally up to them and watch them excel. For another, it could be purely transactional leadership. What is transactional leadership? Give your teacher a target. If this is the target you achieve by so and so time, then you will get so and such incentive and you will get a promotion. That is a transactional leadership style. It's giving incentives or giving a carrot at the end of the stick. Now, the role of the leader here is simply to be able to catch the pulse of each of her team members and then use the most effective leadership style to achieve the goal. And further to that, you have to continue to be dynamic and flexible, as what leadership style worked with teacher A for a particular situation might be very different for the same teacher A faced with another situation. For example, your leadership style when a teacher has to handle parents may be very different from your leadership style with how she has to approach making a lesson plan, or maybe how you want her to improve her content mastery. So leadership styles also need to change depending directly on the situation and the person you're dealing with. But that being said, at the end of the day, there are some universal truths that are germane to all leadership styles. So the first is inspirational motivation. What is this? Well, you have to have the ability to inspire, motivate people who should want to follow you. And by this, I don't mean by any means that you are running a popularity contest. You want to be popular. No, as a leader, you will be required to take unpopular decisions at times. And that's okay. Even if people are not agreeing with your decision at that point of time, they will respect you for standing up for what is right and what is required. rather than being a principal without a spine. The next is idealized influence. That's basically being a role model, one who can lead by example, one whose behavior is worth emulating. For example, you can't be a principal who is walking in, strolling into school at 8:15, and then you expect your teachers to show up at 7:30. The do as I say, but don't do as I do, that approach does not work. Because leadership is not a rank, it's not a position, it's not a title. I am the principal, thus I am the leader of the school. See, you can see it on my business card. It's written, I am the leader of my school. I am the leader, I'm the principal. No, you may be the principal, but you may not be the leader of your school. So leadership is not rank or title. Leadership is action. It's the decisions, it's the choices that you make every single day. It's the culture that you set in your school every single day. What is the school culture? It's the manifestation of the ethos, of the values that is there in the day-to-day running of your school. So are you one who sets high standards and high values in everything that you do? The culture that you set in your school, is it one of high standards and high values? Not allowing obstacles and problems to defeat you. Obstacles and problems are going to come in everyone's way. You can be a big school, a small school, a school in a tier 1 city, a school in Canada, wherever in the world. But obstacles and problems are going to come in our way. There is a big difference in the way successful leaders and unsuccessful people think when confronted by a difficult problem. Unsuccessful people get limiting in their own self-beliefs, and they typically say these three types of things. I don't know how to do that. So they stop. I don't have those resources. So they stop. Or, I'm not like that. That's not who I am. So they stop. Now, successful people have a different way of thinking. They're also confronted with the same difficult problems. Successful people say, I want to overcome this difficult problem, but I don't know how to do that. And instead of stopping, they say, well, then my job is to go and learn that. They take their current limitation and put it on their agenda as a job to do, as a thing to learn, to go and figure out, to make it happen. Instead of saying, I don't have that, they say, my job is to go build that. Or, I'm not like that. That's not who I am. Then my job is to go and become more of that, become the person who can accomplish those things. Who is stopping you from doing that? Now, let's give an example so we can make it more education based. For example, your dream is or goal is to become a public speaker, which is a very important communication tool as a principal. If you're a principal, you have to be a good communicator. So you could sit back and think, I can't have that because I'm not like that. I am not a good, confident public speaker. I get very nervous in front of these audiences. ठीक है, assembly तो अलग बात है. There are 500, 800,000 children. But otherwise, I get very nervous, butterflies in my stomach. Well, you have to go and learn that art and become a better speaker, become a better communicator. You have to become more confident. You have to become a person capable of doing those things. You have to change yourself to get there, because you can't just wait for luck and circumstances to come and change so that you can achieve your goals. That's not the way life's going to work. You don't need permission from anyone else to become a better you. So are your excuses really bigger than your abilities? Or are you the one that people look up to when the tough times come? The next is intellectual stimulation. You have to challenge your team members, give them a purpose. They have to be intellectually stimulated to do the task. And why are we talking only about principals as leaders? I understand this is the IPN, the Indian Principals Network, and most of the people watching here are principals. But a leader is a person who builds more leaders. So let's take this discussion from the principal's office. Let's take it to the staff rooms. And actually, why only the staff rooms and teachers? Let's take it to classrooms and build leaders in our most important assets of the school, our students. So whether it's for the senior leadership team of the school, the teachers or the students, you have to build curiosity, make them feel challenged and have a purpose for the task that they have to carry out. And what is that purpose? How do you build it in your team? Each team member needs to understand how their contribution is actually going to shape their end goal and the importance of their role in achieving that larger objective of your school. Each team member has to feel valued. Their contribution has to feel valued, rather than, yeah, this is what I've given you, go and do it. And finally, you have to offer individual consideration. What do I mean by individual consideration? Now, these things are not rocket science. At the end of the day, it is simply being a good human being, and something that gets forgotten or left behind so often. Now, it's important to understand that each employee is unique, has distinct skills, and will contribute to the school in their way. As a leader, you must have genuine concern for the well being and personal growth of each team member. You do this, automatically your team members will be drawn to you and want to support you in your initiatives.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a beautiful start to the entire topic of transformation leadership, and I think you've given us a lot of food for thought. But I have a very specific question on this only. So, Raghav, in the current context specifically, when I think there have been more changes than expected, maybe, right? We were suddenly coupled with the COVID change and the major sort of a NEP document coming through. Right. So when these sudden sort of a changes for which majority of the leaders were found a little wanted, or possibly wanting for a little more answers than they have with them, any specific sort of a challenge you per se as a leader navigated in these specific times, which you can share, and then people can pick it up from your experience example.
No, and well, whether it was the pandemic, 1.5, 2 years that we went through, which was totally uncertain, we didn't have a clue about what was happening. And as
Correct.
educationists, we are so used to having these plans charted out for the next 2 years, 3 years. You'll ask a principal next August, what is your plan on August 13th? They'll tell you already, I have periodic test one and this and that, or whatever it might be. And all those plans got washed away by this COVID crisis that we did not expect. And I think the one advice that I'd give is that learn to embrace uncertainty. There's nothing certain in life, anyways, except for the fact that we're all mortal and we're all going to leave this world one day. But apart from that, everything in life is uncertain. So learn to embrace that uncertainty with open arms, because that is truly what will build the 21st century skills that we want from our students. What were those skills that we once sagaciously foretold from the ramparts of the biggest education conclaves of the world? The ability to be resilient, to cope with limited resources, to be adaptable, flexible, all of those skills, critical thinking, being a better communicator. Which of these skills do our tests measure? And which of these skills did the test of the pandemic measure? All of them. We had to all cope with limited resources. Teachers were put in front of these screens. Now, had I asked my teachers, let's say in Feb 2020, just before the pandemic happened, that for next 1.5, 2 years, you're going to teach students only on screens and you don't come to schools, they would have been like, sir, you've lost it. You're losing your brains. You don't know. This is not how education happens. Yet we were thrown into the deep end of the ocean and we were forced to navigate those turbulent waters. What is beautiful here, and the point I want to make out here, is what happened with that turbulent time. What happened in swimming against the current? Initially, everyone was finding it very discouraging, and oh my God, this is not how it will happen. And the voice would keep going and you would keep saying, hello, am I audible? Am I audible? That typical thing. Funny story. Some teachers went back to class and after going in physical classes were still asking students, am I audible? Am I audible? Because that's just how classes had become, how lessons had become. But my point here is that what happened out of all of that? The growth. Teachers broke a glass ceiling above their heads that they thought they were not capable of doing, and they performed so beautifully, even in that pandemic. I am not at all saying virtual schooling is compared to physical schooling. Of course, it's not. But given the circumstances that the world was in, the educators of our country and most of the world did fantastically well to provide education even in those resources. So I think the lesson that I have out here, the suggestion that I have is to all the leaders here, the roughest seas maketh the best captains. Know that if you're facing turbulent times and you're able to navigate your way through to reach your goals, that is what's really making you the true leader. Anyone can solve an easy problem. If you really want to be a leader, you have to be able to have your team rally around you in those tough times and take on those tough obstacles and then overcome them. Yes, sometimes you will fail, but did you and your team learn? What will happen? Maximum, you'll stub your toe, you'll hurt yourself, but you'll learn from it. If you've learned from it, then it's also a win, because a failure is teaching you far more than success can ever can. So my advice would be, change your perspective, change your mindset on how you look at these tumultuous times. Look at it as every challenge is an opportunity, but only if you make use of it. It can't be this side. It sounds very good. Every challenge is an opportunity, but if you learn from it, it's an opportunity. If you don't do anything about it, then it's not, you haven't made use of it. You haven't made it an opportunity. If you're going through tumultuous times, this is the best opportunity that you have been thrust into, to developing skills that otherwise would have remained latent inside you. To get rid of that myopic, short-sighted outlook where you believe, I'm in a tragedy. NEP has come. This has happened. That has happened. It's such a tragedy. It's so difficult for me. You don't know how I'm handling so many teachers and how I'm doing this. Don't get into victim theory mindset. Yes, there is adversity, but adversity has the ability of eliciting talents that lay dormant within us during prosperous times. This is the time for your biggest growth.
Absolutely, yes. Dormant, they remain dormant when not challenged. Yes. Uh, Building on to what you said, that the school leader was always and have been a very meticulous planner, and I think somewhere or the other, if you look at Raghav, NEP is really changing, or I would say challenging, a lot of our existing way of doing things. And then suddenly, a school leader is managing, I would say, a lot of changes, which as they continue to change, few in their control, many of them not in their control, right? So maybe a little build up on this point, which is when a school leader is looking to implement NEP in their old system, or overall, if I may say, they're bringing this change management into theirs, what all are the key factors they can keep in mind when they are managing this sort of change?
So I don't know if you remember this, Gaurav, about maybe a year and a half back, when the NEP was actually launched, that actual document that got launched. We had a session. You had invited me for a session, and we spoke about, okay, so what are your views on the NEP and how do you think we're going to take this forward? And one of the most important things that I had said was that the NEP is a great vision document. It spells out, it hits the right notes in most of the places. The draft document, by the way, to the educators, was not this good. The drafts that went before the final one that got passed was, I'm so glad that the final one is the one that got passed. There was a lot that left to be desired in the drafts that was there, especially for private schools. But the final NEP that got passed was a fantastic vision document. It was great for schools to know, okay, this is what we want to achieve. This is what our goal is. Otherwise, private schools, public schools, everyone is sitting and doing their own thing of trying their own ways of moving towards goals that might not be the same. But apart from it being a good vision document, what was truly important was, like how, using another cricketing analogy, it's you let your bat do the talking. It's eventually how that NEP or that vision document is translated into the on-ground efforts inside classrooms, inside campuses of schools, in the grounds, in events. How are those NEP ideals actually being translated? So now we have come into that phase where it's actually being translated. Of course, there are a lot of schools that are doing a fantastic job. Some of them were doing it before the NEP even came into existence. My suggestion to principals, to educators would be, keep an open mind about it. There is a lot of good in it. Eventually, how it is put across to benefit the students is up to you. By you, I mean the principal, the vice principal, the coordinators, the teachers, all of you. If you all decide that this is how we want to translate it and put it into action, that much is all left to you. One of the differences, now people talk about Finnish system of education. I'm sure all the 179 educators here on this call, on this presentation would have heard of the Finnish system of education. They talk about the best education system in PISA rankings, TIMS, etc., etc. Finland is always in the top one, top two, top three. So what makes them so good? What is the one thing that differentiates them? What is their secret magic mantra? One of the major things that differentiates the Finnish system of education from most Asian systems of education, including India, is the amount of trust that they put into their teachers. The teachers are given that trust and belief and confidence that you are the master of that class, you are the master of that lesson, and it is up to you. We trust you. I'm the principal. I trust you to do that good job. And you are going to do it. And with that, a lot of those teachers excel and make the students reach the levels that they aspire to be. I think as an Indian education system, one thing that we lack perhaps is the lack of trust in our teachers. The principals or the vice principals or the HODs tend to not have as much belief in their teachers as they should. Yes, there can be 5% or 10% of teachers who may fail your expectations. But I believe that 90 or 95%, if you instill them with faith, belief, and confidence and trust, they are over a period of time going to repay your faith, belief, trust, confidence manyfold. That is something that I think we lack as an education system. So coming back to the NEP, I think the NEP has a great document. Trust your teachers, trust your educationists, let them stub their toe, let them make a mistake here or there, but have a long-term plan for their growth.
Trust, absolutely. On that note, we will quickly open up the house for Q&A, and I think we'll devote good 30 odd minutes on this bit, which is the second half of our conversation. We started at 5:30. It is about to be 6 now. So if you have any question for our guest, Mr. Raghav, you can put up a virtual show of hand. I'll help you unmute, and then you can ask your question. Or if you have anything very pointed to share with respect to the discussion we had today, we would love to hear from you as well. Right, so virtual show of hand, and we will help you unmute, and then you can ask or make your point across to all of us. Dr. Rajesh, over to you.
Yeah. Good evening, and it's fantastic, Mr. Raghav, to listen to you, and it is absolutely, making things clear to understand. What I was requesting when we say the putting the trust, I'm sure you have a background of education, but there are now so many schools. I also interact with so many where the background is not educational. They are most of the business families have come into education. What would you suggest them?
You're right. There are a lot of business families, and not even business families. They're investors. There are people who are these big investment firms, the global investment firms, venture capitalists. They are investing into education. That is absolutely true. The Indian education space is changing drastically. And if I may take this conversation a little extrapolated, it's not only about schools. If you look at, without naming any company, there are companies that are worth billions and billions of dollars now, which are selling education. I think at the end of the day, whether the people who own or the management are businessmen or venture capitalists, or these people who need to show multi-billion-dollar evaluations to their shareholders or to the investors, I think at the heart of the teaching learning process still stays the teacher and the child's relationship. Education is not a transactional phenomenon. Education is a phenomenon of a relationship. How do children learn well? Which children learn the best? When the relationship that the teacher can build with each child is of the highest quality. If I might throw in some neuroscience out here, for all the people with the science background, you all might enjoy this a little bit more, or the ones who enjoy neuroscience. What is the part of the brain that's responsible? And with your permission, Gaurav, may I please ask questions to the audience, and maybe they can type it in. Which part of the brain is responsible for learning? You all are all educators. You all are all in the business of learning. So what part of the brain is responsible for learning? What part of the brain controls learning? We can put in answers on the screen, type in answers, or feel free to shout them out.
We can put it in the chat window. That will be the best.
Wonderful. Madhav has given the first answer and it's absolutely correct. So I'll tell you something. When I ask this question, and if there are children, what happens is the children are the fastest before their parents, before their teachers to answer. And why do they answer that correctly? It's not because they know the answer. They are smart enough to go and Google it while the chat is going on. So today, and I did not say that you can't use Google, so it's not cheating. And that's a correct answer. I saw Mr. Madhav's answer first. It was the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the part of the brain that's responsible for memory and learning. Wonderful. Many of you all got this right answer, whether through Google or by yourselves. Okay. What is the part? There's another part that is right next to the hippocampus, and it's a tiny little almond, badam-shaped part right next to the hippocampus. That is responsible for, or let me tell you what the name is. It's called the amygdala. The amygdala is right next to the hippocampus and connected to it. What does the amygdala have? What does it control in your body? What is the amygdala's purpose?
Emotions, yes. Basically.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I saw Roja's answer first, which said EQ. That's absolutely the right answer. Gaurava has got very good gifts lined up for all of you giving the right answers. Just kidding. But yes, emotional quotient, the emotions of the child, the feelings. Now look at this, the highest concentration of endorphin receptors. What are endorphins? Simple one, no prizes for guessing this. What are endorphins?
Happy enzymes, basically.
Hormones, not enzymes, happy chemicals, happy hormones. The happy hormones. You know, when you feel really good about yourself, you feel great. Your shoulders are back, chest is out, everything, the world feels like in your palm. That is your endorphin rush. The highest concentration of endorphin receptors, the ones who receive the endorphins, is found in the hippocampus, in the learning centers of our brain. What can you analyze or deduce from that? What do you think that means? The highest concentration of the feel-good, happiness chemicals, hormones, the receptors are found in the learning centers of our brain. What do you think? What can you analyze from that? What can you all deduce from that? What do you think that means? Learning makes us happy.
Learning will depend on the emotional state of the child.
Yes. So some have mentioned that the more learning makes us happy. No, it's an endorphin receptor. It's a receiver. So the more we learn, the happier we feel. Our brains are hardwired. The synapses between our neurons, the connections between our brain cells, the way they are made is that we find happiness in learning. Now, why would you say you have children in classes? Some of them are like this, some of them are sleepy, some of them are hungry. What is going on? If learning is making you happier and our brains are hardwired to find joy in learning, then why is that happening? It's boring. Why is it boring? Sense of achievement. Yeah, that's the dopamine hit that you're getting, Sudha. That the sense of achievement makes us happy. That's correct. But why is it boring? Nothing new. Absolutely. So when that learning that is taking place, that is too distant from your knowledge base or too monotonous to what you already know, then those endorphin receptors don't get fired up. Let me give you an example. I have about 183 people watching here. All of you, if I give you an option, you have to stare at a blank white screen for about 2 hours. Or you can go to the museum, or you can go and read a book, maybe go up your Facebook or check your phone. Which one will you choose? One of the latter. You're not going to stare at the blank white wall. So why? Because there's nothing new you're learning. Now let's say, how many of you all checked your Facebook in the last 24 hours? Maybe half, maybe less than half. Some people are putting their hands up very, very slowly, like they don't want to say that I didn't check but there's nothing wrong in checking Facebook. Many of you all have Facebook pages of your school, so you all better be checking your Facebook page of your school to see who's commenting, what they're commenting. Now, if your Facebook was filled, your news feed was filled with something new every day, but in a language that you didn't understand, would you keep going back to it? No. If it's filled with the same thing again and again and again each time, would you keep going back to it? No, you wouldn't. If the learning that is taking place is too distant from your knowledge base or too monotonous to what you already know, the endorphin receptors don't get released, don't get fired up, and the joy of learning goes away. So education, now I told you about amygdala and the hippocampus. The learning centers of our brain are directly connected to and related to the emotional center of our brain. We learn best from people we have an emotional relationship that we like. If a teacher is at heart, can get her students to love her or him, and the teacher displays that passion of the love for their subject, their love for teaching, automatically that learning will take place at its highest capacity. Whether or not the management is a business family, a politician, or a venture capitalist who is sitting in New York or in London or in Paris. Eventually, education is between two people, the teacher and the learner, and the learner and the teacher, because the teacher also has to learn from the learner. It doesn't matter who that management necessarily is. Of course, there can be some managements who are purely commercial, but I hope even in those schools that the final relationship that happens that drives teaching does not get lost in the overall picture of a political or a venture capitalist or a business run school.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Roja, your question?
Good evening, all. Good evening, Dr. Raghav. You've been very enlightening. But I have one question, and I'm hoping that I will get a solution. I'm very concerned as a principal. I started my journey as a teacher 26 years ago, but I see a sea change in the teachers. What is it that we are doing wrong, or why is it that it is happening? I hope I don't want to hurt any, because I'm a teacher at heart, but I do notice that there is a change. So are we doing something wrong, or the society requirements have changed? I have no clue. So I'm looking for answers from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that question. And yes, there is change. There's no doubt teachers have changed, and a lot of teachers are now, I know, getting poached very fast. There's no employee retention as much. They don't have that feeling of that loyalty or love for their school as much. And for flippant reasons, they might be jumping jobs, which is very much more common now in the last, say, 10 years as opposed to 20 or 30 years. That's absolutely true. But I don't think I would say that you're doing anything wrong. I think change is a sign of the times that we live in. If, let's say, 26 years ago, when you started as a teacher, there must have been certain changes from 20 years before that, which at that time your principal would have had to deal with. Not these changes, but there must have been something else. Today, the teachers are having different maybe requirements or maybe different desires, and they see it as a way of just an easy jump. I don't think it would be right to say that principals are doing anything wrong in that sense. I think with time, principals, any leaders need to go along with the time. As rightly said by Sangeeta ma'am, that change is the only constant. We have to keep changing. We have to keep changing, because if we don't, we will be left behind by some other person who is finding a way to go ahead. Dr. Rajesh Sharma says, "Who moved my cheese? I have no idea."
I hope that answers your question, Ms. Roja. We go to the next one. C. Ravikant Ohal, your question.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I'm currently working as a principal. My question is like, a lot of people are coming to the education sector now. I'm working as a teacher, but truly, if I see the qualifications are not there, though they are not qualified like to be like eligible for teaching in the schools, but most of the schools are recruiting them why? Because they are coming for the low salaries or maybe some other reasons, but they are not having that the same quality of teaching how our trained teacher is doing in the classrooms. So for that, what will be the solution? How we will be going to see in our futures?
Very good question, Ravi Kanji. Thank you so much. I truly believe, and I advocate for this at the top levels of our country's education systems. The future of our country is directly related to the quality of the teachers and students that we have in our schools. There is no bigger investment in a country than its future. Who is its future? Its students. Who are the students being brought up by? The teachers. There is no better investment in this country than the teachers of our country. It's as simple as that. We get the best minds of the country, the best talent of the country into the teaching profession. And automatically, when we talk about GDP is growing at this and GDP is growing at that, it will be double, triple of that. It will really hit the roof in the longer run. What do we need to do that? We need to be able to attract the best minds, the best talent into the teaching profession. Unfortunately, you're right. There are a lot of people who get into teaching thinking, it's an easy profession. I've heard stories from B.Ed people after B.Ed and asking them that, why did you get into becoming a teacher? And they'd be like, I got married and my in-laws said, no, go and spend some time with children, go and do teaching. It'll be easier. It's not at all easier. It's far tougher to handle a group of 20 or 30 or 40 children than it is to be sitting in an AC cabin in front of a computer and typing in numbers on an Excel spreadsheet. So I think we desperately need to make teaching the most revered. And again, I'm using an example of Finland. I've studied the Finnish system of education at great length over years and years, sat inside classrooms, met with the National Ministry of Education out there, sat in the staff room. And one of the things that happens is that why do people want to join the teaching profession in Finland? One is, okay, the salaries. You may think that the salaries are very high. They are not. In the OECD countries, that the European countries, they're actually quite in the mid-range. They are not in the high range. Then why is it that in Finland, everyone wants to become a teacher? In Finland, to become a teacher is more highly respected and revered than it is to even become a doctor, engineer, or a lawyer. So if you're a teacher, you have the highest status in society, that reverence that is there to a teaching profession. And that is what drives people into becoming teachers. Now, to look at our country has the most beautiful, rich legacy and heritage of Guru Deva Bhava. We have the heritage saying our gurus are next to God. I was hearing one of the people speaking just before we signed in, and they said, in my school, we call the teachers Guruma and Guru Shris. And it's such a wonderful thing to bring back what our best features of our legacy and heritage are in the Indian education system, to be able to truly make the respect that is there for education, for educators, back, so that people will want to come back into education. Currently, unfortunately, I think as time has gone on, with the degradation of time, teachers have almost, or schools and teachers and principals have almost become like an opposite side of the fence to a lot of, especially in the pandemic, this happened, where schools and parents were put on two opposite sides of the fence. And then they were made to fight that, no, you have to do this, no school, no fees, no fees, no school. All of that happened, that started and all. For what? The child stands on 2 feet. One foot is the family, the parents. The other foot is the school. If either of those 2 feet start wobbling, the child will fall. We are all on the same side, the side of the child. The child succeeds, we succeed. The child fails, we fail. That's as simple as it is. We have to bring in the respect, reverence, and the status associated with being a teacher. I beseech all of you, I beg all of you to try to bring that in your own ways. If we can make teaching the most desirable profession of our country, automatically the inflow of the quality of talent coming into the teaching profession will improve. And with that, we will have better students and a better future of our country.
Thank you so much, sir.
Atulji, your question, Mr. Atul.
Sir, happy evening to all of us and happy evening to sir also. I was really listening to your conversation. It was really great. But one question I have, sir, like the teacher and the guru concept which we had, now due to this materialistic society, teachers have lost the passion to teach, and being it's regarded as one of the, because I don't have anything to do, let's become a teacher now. Right. And second, the BEd colleges situation, I think most of the principals will know that they are not fairly, because as you know, when you do a MSc, you know what to teach, but BEd teaches you how to teach. That phase is itself missing in the Indian sector. Now, the question to you is, sir, that how we change the school system from learning oriented to career oriented. We are still following the rot system where our kids, no matter how much score, they are not ready for the industry. So I would like you to address, sir, please.
It's a big vicious cycle. Why do children go to schools? So that they can get into the best college. Why should children go to schools? So that they can maximize the inherent talents and potential so that they can excel at what they are best in. However, the way the Indian education and a lot of the Asian education system is set up is that the purpose of education has become marks. And what do I need to get those marks? I need rote. I need to mug up XYZ, and then I will be able to get those marks. And if I get those marks, I will get into the best college. If I get into the best college, I will be having the best chance of getting a best job or the best package. That itself is what the problem is. We have set up the Indian education system in a way, in a pursuit of marks. Yes, maybe in the 40s and 50s and 60s on the British times, when there was an industrial age, that might have been a requirement. Today, that's not the requirement. Today, children already have Google on their fingertips, and with that, access to limitless information. Let's say that one child gets 100 on 100 and is an encyclopedia of stuff. The next child, if he knows how to use Google better than the first child, will still know more. And by the time these kids grow up, they will be auto-prompted with artificial intelligence and other technologies that will give them the information that they need to complete the next task. So what are we chasing as an education system? That rote learning, memorization, regurgitation. I mean, we care so much about the marks that our children get in the exam. We forget whether they leave a mark with their life. That is far more important. So how do we change that? We change it by you and me and everyone else on this call taking those decisions to change mindsets of parents, to make them realize that your child will actually reach their potential with 21st century skills and not only with marks. Yes, marks are important and nobody's going to deny that. But along with that, that is part A. Part B, educationists like me, and there are others who are very regularly speaking to CBSE and other the education secretaries of our country to revamp what is important in education. So whether through industry bodies or through the relationships that we have, we are trying to push them that try to move the focus, the spotlight from content mastery to competence mastery. At the end of the day, the children need to be competent, not just be pitaras or reservoirs of content. That content is anyways accessible to us on a fingertip. So there are those efforts that are going to be happening, that are already happening. But I do request all of the educators here also to make their own efforts to educate their parents. It is going to be swimming against the current because parents are not wanting to hear that generally. They are more like, listen, we want to know what finally maths mein kitne aaye, English mein kitne aaye. They finally come to that. But as educationists, as responsible educationists, we have to try to change that mindset as one step at a time.
Dr. Shilpa, your question. We have another 9 minutes, Raghav, with us. So I hope you are happy to take up these questions. Right. So Dr. Shilpa, your question, then we go to Dr. Shubhas, I believe. But first, Dr. Shilpa, over to you.
Ma'am, are you on mute?
Yes. You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be in this forum to discuss these questions and to hear you. It's very inspiring and very heartening to listen to you as an educationist. I would like to, you have properly already worded, is a vicious circle in the education. We are not individuals, actually, only educationists. Regarding this, sir, already you have made certain points. I would like to point out few things, that the teachers are demotivated for the parents' certain remarks and the legal actions they take also for silly reasons. They drag to the court, and it becomes, very, very serious matter from silly things. One thing. And then principals, actually, we are sitting there. Most often we are doing the counselor's job, finding out who did it, why it happened, and running to the court, answering for these things. These are, very tense situations that we face. Then we are talking about NEP. I remember we are actually, even from CBSE and other, forums have come up telling that we speak about NEP, we train and all these things. A lot of things are being loaded over teachers, practically attending online and offline sessions. And I do not see anything practicality happening in the students and between teachers or parents or things like that. They have been loaded, but outlet is not there for that. And one more thing, what I want to say is that the too many changes happening and the teachers not trained for that challenge. Of course, they are listening to the theory part of what they have to be doing, but then they have been not trained how to do it, from what they were trained to whatever changes are taking place today. And one more thing that I want to bring to your, take your suggestion or guidance is how to motivate these teachers that in the long run this will happen and the whole system will change into NEP, or it is not going to change, but it's it's going to stay like that. And also how to motivate parents and students for to take up this challenge as it is. So, and as I have been also a resource person here and there, but we are going on motivating teachers and so many modules and things being sent to them, told to prepare lesson plans and all that, and regarding analyzing and application part, that and all these things, but then it is not really happening in reality, to speak. Very little bit happens and the rest of the things goes into again lecturing only. So how do you take up all these calls put together? You have answered a bit, but let me see what you
True.
like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. A lot of questions packed into one, so I'm going to try to cover most of the points that you did raise. How do you motivate teachers? A very, very good point. I think, yes, teachers feel that now we have NEP, we have corrections, we have to stay back, we have now legal issues, we have parents who are complaining at the slightest of issues. All of these things are there, and true, it can sometimes feel like an uphill task to motivate teachers. I think it's important that teachers realize that they don't actually even come to know, realize that the fact that they are the ones who have the future of the country in their hands. They are the ones who are building the nation one child at a time. Do tell this to your teachers that, the teacher, even 10 years, 20 years, 30 years later, a child will come up to them maybe in the market or in the theater and touch their feet. And what kind of blessings or what kind of feeling you're going to get at that time is something that no other job can ever give you that kind of fulfillment or satisfaction. So that is one thing teachers should realize, that all of this that they're doing is very, very worth it. Apart from that, I would talk about the leadership styles that I said. So how to motivate teachers? I think it's very important to build a school culture that truly, truly encourages teachers to be passionate beyond just theory. It's easier said than done, but as I said, there'll be some teacher who will work best in terms of giving them an incentive. Somebody will work best by letting them be laissez-faire, let them be, guide them, just give them, this is the problem. Another one can be giving them ownership. Very, very, very important. You have to build ownership of the problem, ownership of the school. Anything happens in the school, they should be the first one to fight. So building ownership in each team member by making them feel contributed, by making their contribution feel valuable, making champions out of teachers. If you're having an issue that you have only 5 teachers or 10 teachers out of all who are really this passionate and enthusiastic and actually motivated every single day, no matter what the obstacles are, make them champions. Show the others that this is what's working. these 5 were the champions. Even though they went through these obstacles, they overcame it, and look where they reached today. Seeing that as an example, building that culture, automatically more and more, it can infect the others positively to truly bring out that motivation. But I think that eventually is going to be a very personalized discussion, because each teacher has a different way of being motivated. As I said, for somebody, it's an iron fist. For somebody, it is putting your arm around them. What's your problem? What's happening? Okay, why don't you tell me? Democratic. You tell me, what do you think? How should we go about it? Fine. Would you like to take it on? I'll give you a team, 3 teachers under you. You go ahead and problem solve. You take it on. Build that ownership. Suddenly now it's, oh, my principal believes I am capable of doing it. She's giving me a team of 3 other people to do it. Wow. Maybe there's something inside me that I didn't even notice about myself. So these kinds of things, but eventually it has to be an individualized, personalized approach. I can't put it with one size fits all.
Final question, Dr. C.B. Pandey. I believe there was someone else before. I think they have lowered their hand. So I will go to Dr. CBG. Over to you, CBG. Your question?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Raghav sir.
Good evening.
One question actually, this problem is related with a problem, especially in the +2 sections actually. These days, due to coaching culture, what happened or happening even in Patna, that the students are least bothered to join +2 school, the regular schools, rather they join the flying schools. And due to less number of schools in +2 sections, teachers who are working in the school for over the last 10 years, they are said by the management, since we cannot afford you, so we are sorry, we are firing you. And one day you find that you are on the street. Where is the fault of those teachers?
You're absolutely, absolutely right. And one thing I want to point out to you, sir, as well as everyone else watching, this is not an issue of your school or your district or your city or your state. It is across India that schools are going through this for 11th, 12th. The coaching centers, or the dummy schools, as they are called, are unfortunately doing things that are very, very, I think, detrimental to the education of the children. But purely it's market based. I mean, at the end of the day, if the child or the parent feels that by going to a dummy school or by going to ABC or XYZ coaching class, they stand a better chance to crack their NEET or their JEE, I think, I mean, I feel bad about it, but I think as educationists, as school leaders, we have to rethink on what is our role then in 11th and 12th. I'm not saying that it should be dummy schools and all that, but I'm saying in terms of how do we still make us desirable? At the end of the day, that's the fact of the matter. We can still keep on sitting and feeling, nahi, ye galat ho raha hai. Why are they going to dummy schools? The coaching business to sab commercialization hai. There's no quality in that. 100, 200 बच्चे बैठा देते हैं, when they know not even 1 or 2 or 3 of those children are actually going to crack that exam. Sub commercialization hai, or by selling these dreams of you will become this and you will become that, they commercialize and take. But that is the reality of where we stand today. And you're right, there are teachers in the 11th and 12th who are losing their jobs because of this. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that we will have to introspect as school leaders to really think of what is our role in 11th and 12th. After they have come up with the CUET, they have made the CBSE grades also pretty much irrelevant for your NEET or your JEE or your other coaching classes or for competitive exams. If your CBSE marks don't even count, then what are we doing? How are we going to stay relevant? I think there's a lot of soul searching and introspection that is required of all of us. And we will have to reimagine ourselves. We will have to. There's no other choice. And I'm not saying in the dirty way, not in become a dummy school. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying how to keep our values sacrosanct and to yet be able to cater to what the market desires and market needs is something that we will have to rethink and introspect and change our own styles of reaching out to our audience.
Final question, Dr. Subhash.
Yeah, a very good evening to all of you. Keeping the dearth of time in mind, I'm the last leg in talking. So at this point of time, first of all, let me thank Mr. Raghav for a very thought-provoking presentation, and it was very interesting in all aspects. One challenge which I feel many of the leaders which they are following, because it is creating a hypocrisy. On the one hand, we are teaching the children to create values, but I find there was a question which was also raised that schools are hiring teachers at a very less salary. At our school, we are paying very high salary to the teachers, but we find very good teachers, no doubt about that, in terms of teaching. But in terms of values, those people are deficient in that. So that is creating a kind of a dichotomy for the institution and for the children. They are very good in the class, but when it comes to values passing by, that is missing in few of them. But on the terms of teaching, you cannot ask them, you cannot question them, because they're very good teachers. So there is always a diabolical thought in the mind, so how to go about. And I, being a Raghav, leading so many good institutions, what he thinks about that is only a quality of teacher teaching very relevant. At the same time, a teacher should be a teacher, at the same time a good human being, which will also be reflected within passing the culture within the school and within the class. Otherwise, there is always a diabolism, which creates a dichotomy, and we are always perplexed. So keeping the question short in mind, keeping the dearth of time, so I'll request Mr. Raghav to think about that, being an educationist and running such a beautiful organizations. I know very well because I was also in Maharashtra for a long time. I was heading the Birla Center of Education in Pune. So I've heard about that, and a lot of my colleagues are heading his schools. So let me see what Mr. Raghav has to say about that.
So thank you so much, Subhashi, for that question. And I'll give you an example. I've visited schools, whether Podar schools, non-Podar schools, schools outside of India as well. And I've had teachers in the staff room come up and tell me, sir, I'm the best teacher, senior most teacher of this school. I'm the best teacher. I have great content mastery. I make the best lesson plans, etc., etc. And eventually, what is the role of an educator? What is the role of a teacher? If I have to say, what is the purpose of education in one word? In the most fundamental, basic sense, the crux of education, the purpose of education is simply learning. The quality of the teacher or the quality of the teaching is only as good as the quality of the learning that is taking place inside the last child's brain. It is a connection between those two brains. Now, what is going to get the best quality of learning? How do we define who the best teacher is, or really good teachers are? Highly paid, lowly paid, all that aside. How do we define who the best teachers are? Unfortunately, today in our country, we have a way that we define them on the basis of maybe qualification. Have they done an MEd? Or have they done a master's of their subject? Or have they done a doctorate? Or how many years of experience? Or those kind of factors. In my view and my humble opinion, I genuinely believe the best teachers, whether you're talking about preschool or you're talking about somebody who's in the 12th standard, yes, Ranjita, are the ones who inspire, the ones who make that human connect, the relationship with each of their students, which is based on the emotional quotient, which is based on the value system of the teacher. I personally don't believe teachers who don't have a good value system, who don't have ethics, who don't have belief and passion in what they're doing, can be good teachers. Maybe they'll be having the best content mastery. Maybe they may be very, very good at their formulas. They may have 25 years of experience. In my view, they may not still be a good teacher if they don't have the heart. If their soul is not in the right place, their heart is not in the right place, they can't make that emotional connect with each of their learners. That to me is not a good teacher. And if they can't do that, I don't think they have a place in a school, irrespective of how many degrees they've got or what number of years of teaching that they have of experience. I think at the end of the day, if you can't connect with your students, then you're not a good teacher.
Wonderful, fabulous. Subhashi, you want to say something else?
No, Mr. Raghav, we have brought a very right thought process on the platform, and I'm sure that all of the thought leaders will think about it, and I'm sure that a time has come, or it was always there, that we need to open our mind and the body and the soul. The BMI should be in the right process. That is body, mind, and intellect. I'm not talking about body mind. I'm talking about health index. I'm talking about mind index. So definitely that has brought a good picture in front of all of us. And I'm sure that we'll have more discussions on this with Mr. Raghav. At this point of time, I don't want to elongate the discussion because a lot of people are there. Those who already have a lot of different commitments. So goes with Mr. Raghav as well.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. My final thank you to Raghav. Thank you, Raghav. Wonderful. As I mentioned, since you were our opener, it's like a 300 plus score already on the on the scoreboard. And having said this, as rightly pointed out, if we can still have 150 odd leaders after a enthralling sort of a 1 hour session, I mean, it was truly a valuable start for this wonderful series what we have initiated. We will obviously keep inviting you more often, if I may say, because usually 1 hour is not enough time to really take up all questions. So on that note, I will thank each and every school leader who could be with us this evening. And obviously, last but not the least, my sincere thank you to Raghav once again to being with us. Thank you
so much,
and have a great
Dharma.
evening.
Thank you, and Guru Deva Bhava.
Take care, everybody. Yes, thank you. Take care. Enjoy.
Thank you.